The 15-Point Plan is part of the Win, Make, Give podcast network.
Welcome to the 15-Point Plan podcast. My name is Ryan Park Greigg, and as always, I'm here with my amazing co-host, Jacqueline Ray Smith. And over these last couple weeks and into the next couple weeks, we are diving deep into one of our favorite authors' favorite books, Brendon Burchard's High Performance Habits. Right, Jacqueline?
Absolutely. Last week we talked about clarity. And this week we're going to talk about generating energy, which is one of my favorite chapters because I have not always had, well, let's be real. Maybe I have had more energy than the average person, but I have not always had the amount of energy that I have these days. And so I love talking about generating energy because sometimes I feel like we don't have enough agency over our energy. It's like we think it's something we have or don't have. And I love using the 15-point plan to manage my energy. And it just works for me. It's something that, both of us have been working on for years now. And I think it's easy to look at people and say, wow, like Brendon Burchard, if you've ever seen him at an event or on one of his webinars, that guy has energy, but he doesn't just he wasn't born that way. He doesn't just roll out of bed that way. And neither do I. And neither do you, right? Well, maybe you do. You might actually roll out of bed with energy.
I do not. People make fun of me because when they find out how many hours my morning routine is, the reason for that is because, I roll out of bed a grumpy, cranky, sore old man. And it takes me like half of the items on the 15-point plan to start to get the energy factory even turned on. So no, Jacqueline, I wake up and Brendon says the same. He's like, don't talk to me in the first couple minutes of the day.
Yeah.
And what Brendon has done is he has created a system, just like all the other areas of his life, but he has a specific system to create his energy. So there's 6 high performance habits. Over the last couple episodes, we've gone over a summary of the book as well as habit number 1, which is seeking clarity. Today, we're talking about habit number 2, generating energy. And Jacqueline, I really loved how Brendon compared energy to happiness. And he said the same thing about happiness. So he said, happiness isn't just in us. Happiness is something you create. Brendon is famous for his quote, bring the joy. We talk about bringing the joy everywhere we go because we know that you have to bring joy with you everywhere you go because joy is not going to just come to you all the time, right?
Yeah. Isn't it true that I think people are like, I'm happy or I'm not happy. I have energy. I don't have energy. I have joy. I don't have joy. And in the book, he talks about us being like a power plant. So a power plant doesn't have energy. It actually generates energy. And I love the comparison to happiness and joy. And I actually think when you have more energy, I don't know, I have more happiness and joy when I have more energy.
100%. I know that if I'm not feeling good, I'm not. If I'm low on energy, I'm going to be probably low on happiness as well. And I think a common misconception is like, well, when I get those things, well, then I'll be happy, Jacqueline. When I get the raise at my work, when I get the thing that I have always looked for, then I will be happy. But it seems that it's quite the opposite. When you create the happiness, those things are a lot more likely to come to you. And I saw a quote from one of our other favorite authors, Naval. And Naval said, if you can't be happy with a cup of coffee, you won't be happy with a yacht. In other words, you got to find joy in the little things in life. If you're not finding joy, then you're going to seek these big things in life. And then maybe one day you'll get them and you'll sit there unhappy a few minutes later.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of physical energy, right? A lot of people are like, well, once I get this sorted out and once my kids, get to school and then I'll prioritize my health. And I thought like that for years. I've shared in past episodes about how I used to think that I could manage my mental and emotional energy without prioritizing my physical energy. And really, it's like if you feel like you don't have time for movement and nutrition and sleep, you actually don't have a problem with like time management or your business or relation. You actually probably have a physical energy problem, and
Yeah.
you actually don't have time not to prioritize it, because your physical body is the foundation for mental clarity, mental energy, focus, positivity, right? Like we're talking about, whoever feels positive and optimistic and happy and joyful when you're feeling like a lump on a log? Nobody, you know? And so and same thing with emotions, when you're in a energetic state, you are better at recovering from things that happen. You're more resilient. You have more creativity. And so the physical energy for me, that's been a game changer. And, I've shared that I'm not super motivated by being like the most fit person, or being able to do, the most push-ups or a pull-up or anything like that. Like that doesn't motivate me. Like I'm not running a marathon or doing a bikini competition or, any of those things. I want to prioritize my physical health because I want to have more mental focus and emotional resilience.
100%. And what I found and what Brendon talks about is it's actually quite cyclical. The more physical energy you have, the better brain cognition you're going to have, the more mental energy you're going to have. And then the
Mhm.
more mental energy you're going to have, you're going to be bouncing off the walls because you're doing so well in the things that you do. You're now creating physical energy because your brain is really firing. And I love how you said your brain, I don't know, is it an organ or is it a muscle? But it's a muscle that we train
Yeah, it's a
when
body
we're working. Yeah, it's a body part. So when we're working our muscles by doing physical activity, checking off that movement box on the 15-point plan, we're now kicking our brain into high gear. And Brendon really gets clear on that. He said, look, the high performers in the world in regards to time, so we're doing our time management act on the 15-point plan. The high performers in the world have all said, look, it's not a matter of I don't have time for this. It's a matter of I make time for this, because when I do this, for example, you do a 30-minute workout, everything else that you do in your life, your business, your family time, it's going to be improved, and you're going to do it at a higher level. So you're going to do those business activities even better. So the delta on that has actually been proven. If you do a 30-minute workout again, or even just a 5-minute quick workout in between things, your brain power is now so much stronger. You're going to do all of your business activities at a higher level, which in the long run should save you time, not take you time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Even this morning, I just did a 5-week track workout series, and it's been part of this progressive running series that with these coaches that we've been working with. And he asked us like, oh, which, 5-week series did you like the best? The first one was probably the lowest like impact, I would say,
Hmm.
physically. And then we did this access road series where we were learning how to run on trails, like up hills and down hills with different techniques. And then this one was the, sprints on a track. And so obviously like the physical exertion on this one was a lot higher. And I said, it was my least favorite probably because the other ones were in the forest, in the trees, and I love being in the
Oh, right.
forest.
Right.
And this one was on like a track, which is beautiful in its own way. But one of the other gals and we were talking, and I said, yeah, this one was my least favorite, but we both agreed that we felt the best and the most energized after this one
Hmm.
compared to the other ones. Um, because we were getting those endorphins going, we were exerting maybe at a higher level. And so we felt better after it, even though we didn't like it as much in the moment.
I wonder if there's any correlation between actually not liking it and feeling better after.
Hmm, that
In
would
other
be
words,
interesting.
when we enjoy something more, it might be a little bit easier.
Hmm.
But the fact that you enjoyed it less meant it was probably harder, meaning you had a greater level of satisfaction after completion.
Perhaps you're onto something there, Sir Ryan.
Do hard things, Goggins. Do
Yeah,
hard things.
hard things. Actually, I did quote Goggins today because we were doing 500s and 100s,
Oh,
and I had to think of that Goggins quote. When you want to quit, you're only about 40% through. Like you've got like 40%. Is it 40% left in the tank, or you are only at 40% usage of your tank? I don't remember, but
yeah, it's somewhere around half, right? When you want to quit, you're about halfway what you actually could do.
yeah, which I was wanting to quit at about 250.
So what
So
we're finding is by generating energy, like
mhm,
you said, it's like a power plant, or Brendan said it's like a power plant. You can't just have energy, you have to create it. And when you create it, the ripple effect of that will be magnified by the other things it's going to do in your life. When you bring joy with you everywhere, happiness comes back to you. So, looking at the 15-point plan and how we can create that energy, well, we know that mindfulness is going to do it because now we have that mental clarity. We know obviously that movement is going to do it. We know that when we're dehydrated, our body is just absorbing all of our energy, right? If we're taking our supplements and now we're reducing inflammation, because again, if you're inflamed in areas because you've overworked that area, your body's just taking all that energy. You're losing so much energy. So things like supplements, things like your hydration, things like movement. But
sleep.
Brendan actually, exactly. Brendan really dove deep into that sleep category on this section because I guess that's just such a foundation of this. It's so hard to get your movement in or eat well or do anything if you're riding on a couple hours of sleep.
Yep. I know that when I don't get a good night's sleep, I stay up too late. I don't know. The next day, why do I crave like cupcakes? There's probably a scientific reason, but I definitely crave things that I don't normally eat when I'm tired. Like I'm trying to like comfort myself or something, the next day. And I want like comfort foods more than when I get a good night's sleep.
I think what it
Mhm.
is your body's craving instant, quote unquote, instant energy with these things like sugar, like you said, cupcakes. So your
Yeah.
brain is telling you, give me something that's going to give me
Give
that
me
quick
energy.
dopamine hit boost.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense for sure.
And so you
So
got to be
the
careful
the
on that.
little like the conundrum that we have, right, is that when I don't know about you, but when I'm when I haven't been working out and taking care of my body, like I don't feel like doing that. Like it's the last, like I feel genuinely like I'd argue with you that I don't have the energy to do that. Like I'm
Right.
like mad about it because I'm tired. I just want to lay around. I want to go to sleep. I want to lay on my deck. But when I don't have energy, I've learned through failing in this so often for so many years that I have to force myself to do it because the less I do it, the less I feel like doing it.
100%. And what I'm hearing, Jacqueline, is having a real sense of awareness within our body and
Mhm.
knowing when you need to stop, knowing when you need to slow down. For example, the other night, I've been going for 3 weeks straight, from soccer tournaments to flying out of town to having friends in town to traveling to just going. And I love it. I'm not complaining. I love it. And my best friend was in town for 5 days, and we just did all kinds of fun things. And on Tuesday night, I got home. It was 6 o'clock. I made dinner, and I fell asleep on the couch at 6:30 because it got to the point where 3 weeks later, my body said, "Dude, you need to stop." And that was my reset. The next day, I woke up feeling amazing. Had I not recognized that though, and like kept pushing, that's where the burnout comes.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
where the burnout comes. And thankfully, I know enough about myself and back to that awareness to know, dude, you got to go home. You need to turn off your phone. You need to just eat dinner and basically go to sleep and recover and catch up on things and wake up tomorrow. And you should now, they have proven, Jacqueline, and this is super important in regards to sleep, you can't catch up on it. You can't make up for lost sleep.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying I caught up on those lost hours of sleep and that's going to impact me in the long run of my life. But the awareness of realizing I have been burning really hard and I need to stop. I need to take a break. I need to eat some healthy food and drink as much water as I can and just pause for a day. Maybe it's a day, maybe it's a few hours if you're not a cranky, grumpy old man like me, but awareness.
Yeah, it's tough to know though because like you're a really active person. So you're like always kind of on the go. Um, even like physically, and I think for me, like I'm newer to that, and so my mind is really good at convincing me that I do need to take it easy, and really, I've already taken it easy. Maybe not in life. I'm not saying like I've had a lot on my plate and all that, but I haven't done my movement. I haven't done my nutrition, and I I actually don't need to take it easy with that. I need to take it easy with maybe work, and I need to actually prioritize, like go on a hike, do a workout, do something physical, even though my mind is telling me that I'm not to do that. And I should just like curl up and scroll on social media, or watch Netflix. Like, so it's hard when we're good at negotiating with ourselves and making a case for things. And so that's where the true awareness comes. Like, do you need to rest? Right? If you've been working out every day and you're feeling run down, you probably do need to rest. But if you actually feel like you need to rest because you haven't worked out, you probably need to force yourself to work out.
That's right.
And that's how you get that power plant recharged and generating energy again. But it's the last thing you want to do.
It is, but it works. It works, right? So having that awareness, kicking that into gear. And you mentioned negotiation. I heard this quote from Tony Robbins a long time ago. He said, when my brain says go, I don't, or when my brain tells me not to go, I should say, he says, I don't negotiate with that effort. When my brain says go, I go. I don't negotiate. And I loved that. And I try to not negotiate with my brain when I have feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like to quote Goggins without cussing, like, F your feelings. You don't feel like doing it? Well, who freaking cares? You're going to feel better when you do it.
Yeah.
And you got to find the reason, which will lead into next week's episode. So join us next week because we're going to be talking about raising necessity, high power habit number 3, and why we do all this stuff and how we can have necessity in our life so that we can do all these things even easier. So we don't need to negotiate with ourselves. So join us next week. We're going to be jumping into high power habit number 3, raising necessity. But until then, we thank you all for listening. Don't forget, go to winmakegive.com for all past episodes as well as the rest of our podcast network. And of course, follow both Jacqueline and myself on social media, Jacqueline Ray Smith and Ryan Park Greigg. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.